people, keeping your head to the sky. Yeah. Woo! When in the midst of sorrow, you can't see up when you're looking down. A brighter day tomorrow will bring.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the ZayMoolaSportsPodcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and Trae Young's time in Atlanta is coming to an end. And Shams Charania reported that he and his agents are working with the Hawks to find a trade. And I saw this coming because Trae Young isn't as valuable to the Hawks as he once was. Because for the first 7 years of his career, he was the face of their franchise, and every move they made was to benefit him. In 2017, they drafted John Collins because they thought he would be a great live threat for him. And then in 2018, they drafted Kevin Huerter because they thought his elite shooting would be a great fit for him. And then in 2019, they drafted Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter because they thought their elite defensive ability would be a great fit next to him. And then in 2020, they traded for Clint Capella because they also thought, like John Collins, that he would be a great live threat for Trae Young. And then in 2022, y'all, they traded for DeJounte Murray because they thought he would be an elite two-way guard next to Trae Young, y'all. And they had some success, right? Because in 2021, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But outside of that, y'all, the Hawks have been a very mediocre team in the Trae Young era. And I think it comes down to this. In today's game, your best player cannot be an undersized point guard. And Trae Young is phenomenal talent. He's one of the best point guards in the NBA, one of the best shooters, one of the best shot creators, one of the best playmakers in the league, y'all. But at the end of the day, he is a undersized point guard who has major defensive limitations. And that's why the Hawks, you never saw them have a ton of success in the Trae Young era. Again, they did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals 2021, y'all. But when you look back on it, it was a pretty fluky run. I mean, they beat a pretty average Knicks team in the first round. In the second round, they went up against the Sixers, and that's the time that Ben Simmons just refused to shoot the basketball. And then, in the Eastern Conference Finals, they got dominated to the Milwaukee Bucks. When you go back and look at that run, yes, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they didn't really beat an elite team to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, y'all. And then the moves they made, did any of those moves really pay off? Because, Kevin Huerter was not a great fit next to Trae Young like he thought he would, because he wasn't a great defender. And then Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, they weren't a great fit next to Trae Young because they didn't end up being, the defenders, the two-way players they thought that they would be. And then Clint Capella, I guess you could say that did pay off, y'all, because Clint Capella at one point in time, was one of the best two-way centers in the league. And then John Collins developed into a really good player. Obviously, DeJounte Murray, that trade did not work out because they thought he would be a great two-way guard next to Trae Young, and they thought that he could ease some of the playmaking burden off Trae Young. But that didn't come to fruition. Why, y'all? Because Trae Young is a ball-dominant player. He needs the ball in his hands to be successful. So that was never going to work out. So again, when you look at all the acquisitions that the Hawks have made in the Trae Young era, some of them paid off, y'all, but the majority of the moves they made never paid off. They never really, benefited him or the team. And I think that's why we're at the point where they're at the point that they are with Trae Young, I should say, because they understand, y'all, that it's just time to go their separate ways. Because again, in today's NBA, your best player cannot be an undersized point guard, y'all. You have to have a 6'7", 6'8", two-way wing player that can do a variety of things on the floor at an elite level, y'all. And the Hawks finally have found that guy in Jalen Johnson, right? He fits the mold. He's 6'8". He's great offensively. He's great defensively. He's a great playmaker. He can guard and play multiple positions, y'all. And now he's the face of their franchise, right? He's the guy that they're building their team around. So there's really no need to have Trae Young on the team, y'all, because he, again, as I started to state this video, as I stated to start this video, he doesn't have the same value to the Hawks as he once did, because he had been the face of their franchise the first 7 years of his career. Right, but he's no longer the face of their franchise. Why? Because they finally come to the realization that Jalen Johnson is the guy they need to build this team around, y'all. When you look at the type of players that the Hawks have put on their roster, they have a lot of guys that are like Jalen Johnson, 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", two-way players, y'all, that play great both offensively and defensively. Guys like Zachary Richardson, Nneka Konwu, Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. That is the type of team they're constructing, y'all, because that's what it takes to win in the NBA. Again, you look at the best teams in the league, y'all, like the Spurs, the Thunder, the Knicks. They have multiple 6'7", 6'8", two-way players, y'all, that can impact the game both offensively and defensively. Not just offensively like Trae Young, y'all. And again, Trae Young is still a phenomenal offensive talent. But the Hawks, they don't need that any longer. right? At one point in time, they needed him to, to average like 25 points per game and get 10, 11 assists per game. That's what they needed him to do, y'all. But they don't need it anymore because they have Jalen Johnson, who's not just a great scorer, but he's also a great defender. And then you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's averaging 20 points and giving you great defense. So they don't really need Trae Young. And you see his numbers this year. Trae Young's averaging 19 points and 8 assists per game, y'all, which is the lowest amount of points and assists he's had since his rookie season. Okay, so this team is no longer centered around him. I think he realizes that, y'all. That's why he wants out, and that's why they're ready to part ways, because they understand that he no longer has the same value to the team that he once did, y'all. Now, that's not saying he would not bring, a lot of value to some other teams, y'all, because there are some other teams out there that are not built like the Hawks, right, that really could use his scoring and his playmaking ability. I think one team that comes to my mind would be the Minnesota Timberwolves. We know that they really need help at that point guard position, right? They have Mike Conley, y'all, but Mike Conley, he's at the, the tail end of his career. He's 38 years old. He's not a starting caliber player in the league anymore. Rob Dillingham, who they drafted a couple years ago in the first round, he hasn't panned out so far, y'all. And they really could use, a shot creator or a ball handler to pair with Anthony Edwards, y'all, to really ease his load offensively. And because the Minnesota Timberwolves are built so well defensively, I think even though Trae Young, again, he's an undersized, player, I think he could really help them out a lot because they already have great defensive players that can kind of make up for his shortcomings defensively. So I would like them as a potential fit for him, y'all. I think another team would be the Toronto Raptors. Now, I know they have Emmanuel Quickley, but Emmanuel Quickley is not the caliber player that Trae Young is, y'all. I think Trae Young would greatly benefit the Toronto Raptors with his three-point shooting, which they definitely need some more three-point shooting, and his elite playmaking ability. And, the Raptors, y'all, yes, they do have Scotty Barnes, who's a great playmaker, but you can never have enough great elite playmakers in the league. So I like Trae Young for the Raptors. And then a sneaky team, y'all, would be the Miami Heat. They do have Davion Mitchell. I think Davion Mitchell is one of the most underrated players in the league. He's averaging about 7 assists per game this season, so he's a really good playmaker. But again, like I said with the man quickly, y'all, obviously Trae Young is a much better player than Davion Mitchell. And we know Pat Riley, he loves superstar players. Like, a couple years ago, he was interested in Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. Like, he's always been a general manager, y'all, that's not been afraid to make aggressive moves. So I would not be surprised if he was interested in Trae Young and tries to build a nice big three of he, Tyler Hero, and Bam Adebayo, y'all. I just don't think it's going to be a lot of other teams that make a ton of sense. I know some people think like maybe the Washington Wizards, y'all, but the Wizards are in rebuild mode, and I love the young core they have, so I wouldn't mess up that young core to bring in Trae Young, because again, even with Trae Young, they're not going to be championship contenders, y'all. Trae Young cannot be the best player on your team, point blank, period. So I don't think the Wizards should do that. I've heard some other people say maybe the Brooklyn Nets, but again, y'all, like the Wizards, the Nets are in rebuilding mode. I don't think it makes sense when you're a rebuilding team to give away young players or to give away draft picks to bring in a guy that is a great player, but he's not a superstar player, y'all. And so at the end of the day, it is kind of unfortunate that things, have to end this way with Trae Young and the Hawks, because they definitely had some great moments, right? Again, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, he did a lot of great things for the organization, became one of the best point guards in the NBA, right? But y'all, at the end of the day, they were never going to be championship contenders with him. And that's just what it is. In today's game, it's just a certain type of archetype of player that you need, y'all, to be your franchise player. And unfortunately, Trae Young does not fit that mold. Again, I'm not saying he's not a great player, y'all. He just simply cannot be the best player on your team. But if you already have an established superstar on your team, he will definitely help your team become even better, y'all. And again, that's why I like him going to potentially the Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors, or Minnesota Timberwolves, because those three franchises already have elite two-way players on their roster, y'all. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Trae Young, but I have no doubt that wherever he goes, he's going to keep getting those buckets and keep getting those assists. So there you have it, man. This is me discussing Trae Young and his potential exit from the Atlanta Hawks. Remember, y'all, labs good messages or what? Make sure you get your daily dose. Y'all know, man, I love y'all. God bless. Peace.